A teenage girl dances in her hotel room, recording herself for TikTok. Her movements are carefree, rhythmic, following a trend that thousands of others have performed. Suddenly, her expression changes. The smile vanishes. Her eyes widen with alarm as she looks toward the door. Someone has entered the room. The video abruptly ends. This was the final TikTok that 16-year-old Kalecia Williams would ever record. At 12:02 in the morning on December 27, 2020, she was filming content for her social media followers. By 12:23, just 21 minutes later, she was pronounced dead from a gunshot wound. What happened in those missing 21 minutes? Why was this high school student alone in a downtown Atlanta hotel room instead of at the chaperone party her parents believed she was attending? And why did a night of holiday celebration end with a teenager's life cut tragically short? Welcome to Explosive True Crime Stories, where we examine real cases that shake communities and leave lasting impacts. Our goal isn't just to recount these tragic events, but to analyze what went wrong and how similar situations might be prevented. In this video, we look beyond the headlines to understand the circumstances that led to these crimes and offer practical safety insights. The story of Kalecia "Pinky" Williams is particularly important because it highlights the intersection of teen life, social media, parental trust, and gun violence, issues that affect countless families across America. Her story deserves to be told with care and purpose. Before we continue, take a moment to consider. Do you know where your teenagers are right now? Do you know what they're posting online? If this question makes you uncomfortable, hit that like button and share this video. These conversations could save lives, and your engagement helps spread this crucial message. Kalecia Williams, affectionately known as Pinky for her love of the color, was a vibrant 16-year-old from Atlanta, Georgia. Born on January 1, 2004, she was raised by her mother, April Smith, and stepfather, Romney Savoy, in a home where she was described as a content homebody who preferred Wi-Fi and Netflix over going outside. Like many teens of her generation, Kalecia found joy and expression through social media, particularly TikTok, where she gained popularity posting dance videos. Her online presence became a significant part of her identity, connecting her with peers and followers who appreciated her energetic personality and dance skills. On December 26, 2020, during what should have been a festive holiday weekend, Kalecia left home at 9 in the evening. Her parents believed she was attending a chaperone party at an Airbnb, a gathering they had permitted once before. Instead, she ended up at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in downtown Atlanta, where her life would end under mysterious and violent circumstances. The disconnect between what her parents thought was happening and the reality of that night represents just one of the many troubling aspects of this case that continues to raise questions about supervision, communication, and teen safety in our digital world. Kalecia Williams entered the world on New Year's Day, 2004, in Atlanta, Georgia. Born into a close-knit African-American family, she was raised primarily by her mother, April Smith, and her stepfather, Romney Savoy, who became significant figures in shaping her upbringing. While little information is publicly available about her biological father, her stepfather Romney took on an active parental role in her life. Growing up in Atlanta, Kalecia was immersed in the vibrant culture of the city, which influenced her creative expression later seen in her social media content. She attended Crawford W. Long Middle School, where teachers and classmates would later remember her for her bright personality and engaging presence. Faith played an important role in her life as well, with Christianity forming part of her family's value system. The Williams household was described as stable and nurturing, providing Kalecia with the security that allowed her personality to flourish. Her parents worked to give her opportunities while maintaining boundaries they felt were appropriate for a teenager in the digital age. They encouraged her interests while trying to ensure her safety, a balance that many parents of Generation Z teenagers struggle to maintain in a world where online and offline lives increasingly overlap. Those who knew Kalecia described her as vibrant and full of life, with an infectious energy that drew others to her. Her nickname, Pinky, originated from her passionate love for the color pink, which became something of a personal trademark. Unlike many teenagers constantly seeking outdoor adventures, Kalecia was content in the comfort of her home, surrounded by technology that connected her to the wider world. "I said, Pinky, you need to go outside and get some air," her stepfather Romney Savoy once recalled. Her typical response revealed her homebody nature. I'm good, as long as I got Wi-Fi and my Netflix." This preference for indoor activities made her parents feel relatively secure about her whereabouts most of the time. Dancing emerged as one of Kalecia's primary passions, becoming both a form of self-expression and eventually the creative outlet that would connect her with thousands of followers online. Like millions of teenagers worldwide, Kalecia discovered TikTok as a platform where she could showcase her personality and dancing skills. What began as casual video creation soon developed into something more significant as her content started gaining traction. Her dance videos, often featuring popular trends and challenges, resonated with viewers who appreciated her natural rhythm and authentic presentation. Kalecia didn't need elaborate production or settings. Most videos were filmed in her bedroom or other spaces in her home. The simplicity and relatability of her content contributed to her growing popularity. She wasn't trying to portray a glamorous lifestyle beyond her years. She was simply a teenager having fun and expressing herself through movement. As her follower count increased, Kalecia experienced the dopamine rush that comes with social media validation. Likes, shares, and positive comments fueled her creativity and encouraged her to post more frequently, gradually building an audience that would follow her journey. Despite her growing online presence, Kalecia maintained strong connections with her family. Her parents described a relationship built on trust, though like many families with teenagers, there were normal boundaries and occasional misunderstandings. They supported her TikTok activities while trying to maintain appropriate oversight. With friends, Kalecia was known to be loyal and engaging. Her social circle included both school friends and connections made through social media. These relationships were important to her, though her parents noted she wasn't particularly drawn to extensive socializing outside the home, making the events of December 26th all the more unusual when she requested to attend what she described as a chaperoned holiday gathering. Saturday, December 26th, 2020, the day after Christmas. While most families were still celebrating the holiday season, the Williams household was going about their evening routines. At 9 p.m., Kalecia prepared to leave home for what her parents understood would be a supervised holiday gathering with friends from school. The timing seemed reasonable for a teenage social event during winter break. Her parents, having already permitted her to attend a similar gathering once before, had no reason to suspect anything unusual about this night. As Kalecia said goodbye to her family, none of them could have imagined that this ordinary departure would be their final interaction. What Kalecia's parents believed was happening that night and what actually occurred were drastically different scenarios. April Smith and Romney Savoy had given permission for their daughter to attend what they understood was a chaperone holiday party at an Airbnb rental. This arrangement seemed reasonable, a supervised gathering of school friends celebrating during winter break. She was supposed to have stayed at an Airbnb with a couple more friends from school and the mother. They had done this once before, so we were comfortable letting her go a second time, Savoy later explained to investigators. The parents had even spoken with someone they believed was the supervising mother, who assured them she would be present throughout the evening. The reality, however, was far more concerning. Instead of a supervised Airbnb gathering, Kalecia and several other minors ended up at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in downtown Atlanta, a sophisticated high-rise establishment where teenagers would typically have limited legitimate business. There was no responsible adult supervision, no parent keeping watch. The chaperone party story appears to have been a fabrication designed to gain parental permission for what was actually an unsupervised hotel gathering of teenagers.
1 month ago today, a 16-year-old girl went to what her parents thought would be a chaperoned holiday party, and she never made it back home. Her parents question where the adults were during the violence and say they want to see more people face charges. Kalecia Williams' parents say their goal is simple.
We just want everyone to be arrested who has something to do with my daughter's death.
No justice, no peace.
A group of more than 20 people gathered outside the Regency Tuesday to keep the teenager's memory alive.
Justice for Pinky!
December 26th, 16-year-old Kalecia, or Pinky as family calls her, went to a holiday party. Her parents say they were told an adult would look after a group of girls at an Airbnb.
She was responsible for getting the hotel room for these minors. The hotel room was in her name, so I feel like she should be held accountable for my daughter's death as well.
They didn't learn the group was staying at a Hyatt Regency until they received a horrific call the next day.
Like, this is the morgue. And I was like, the morgue? They was like, yes, ma'am. They was like, well, we're waiting on your daughter's body to come through. I'm like, whoa.
Kalecia's parents say that call didn't come until 8:45 a.m. The teen was pronounced dead at 12:23 in the morning, 8 hours prior.
It was just a lot of foul play, and I'm just trying to put all the pieces together because I don't feel like the system is doing enough work to help me.
Kalecia's mother says this is the last known video that shows her daughter alive. It shows her making a TikTok dance and appears startled when someone comes into the room. Within seconds, the video ends.
I want the surveillance footage of what happened. You know, who went in that room, who came out of that room, who was all there, what took place. I need to know what happened after she made that last TikTok video at 12:02 and she was dead at 12:23. I need answers from 12:02 to 12:23.
The demonstration lasted hours, and the family says it's just the beginning of their fight for Pinky.
We want answers! We want justice!
We're speaking to a woman who says she saw Pinky's final moments in the hotel lobby. Ahead at 11 on Fox 5 News Edge.
There was never an Airbnb, her devastated parents would later discover, a revelation that would haunt them in the aftermath of the tragedy. One of the most troubling aspects of this case involves how minors managed to secure accommodations at a major downtown hotel. According to reports, the room at the Hyatt Regency was actually booked in Kalecia's name, raising serious questions about hotel policies regarding underage guests and room reservations. How did a 16-year-old successfully book a hotel room? Did she use her own identification? Or was someone else involved in securing the reservation? Was any adult's credit card used for the transaction? These questions highlight potential gaps in verification procedures that might have prevented the tragedy. The Hyatt Regency, located at 265 Peachtree Street in Atlanta's downtown hotel district, is a reputable establishment that presumably has policies against unaccompanied minors booking rooms. Yet somehow, on this particular night, those safeguards, if they existed, failed to protect Kalecia and prevent the circumstances that led to her death. At approximately 12:02 a.m. on December 27th, Kalecia was alone in her hotel room recording what would become her final TikTok video. The footage, which later became crucial evidence, shows her in a seemingly relaxed state, dancing to music as she had done in countless videos before. The video begins normally. Kalecia appears happy, engaged in the performance, unaware of the danger approaching. She's wearing casual clothes, moving rhythmically to the music, focused on creating content for her followers. The hotel room is visible in the background, standard furnishings, nothing unusual or concerning in the frame. Then comes the moment that has haunted viewers and investigators alike. Midway through her dance, Kalecia's expression suddenly changes. The carefree smile disappears, replaced by what appears to be surprise or alarm. Her eyes widen and shift toward the door, suggesting someone has entered the room unexpectedly. Her body language transforms from relaxed to tense in an instant. The video cuts off abruptly at this point. No explanation, no conclusion, just a teenage girl looking startled one moment, and then nothing. This digital fragment, capturing Kalecia's final recorded moments, stands as a chilling timestamp before the 21 minutes that would end with her death. Between 12:02 a.m., when Kalecia's final TikTok video ended, and 12:23 a.m., when she was pronounced dead, 21 crucial minutes elapsed. This brief window contains the heart of the mystery surrounding her death, yet much of what occurred remains unclear or disputed. What we know is that during this time frame, an altercation took place that resulted in Kalecia suffering a fatal gunshot wound to the groin. Atlanta police later stated that she and a teenage boy were the only people inside the room when the shooting occurred. Investigators suggested they were acquaintances who may have gotten into an argument. These 21 minutes represent the difference between a normal teenage night and a homicide investigation. They contain the actions, decisions, and possibly arguments that led to a gun being present, drawn, and discharged. Understanding exactly what transpired during this brief period became the central focus for both investigators seeking justice and a family desperate for answers. The peaceful night at the Hyatt Regency was shattered when hotel staff and guests became aware of a serious incident unfolding on the premises. Sometime after the shooting, Kalecia Williams was no longer in her hotel room, but had somehow been moved to the lobby area of the hotel, a detail that would later raise significant questions about the timeline and actions of those present. At approximately 12:27 a.m., Atlanta Police Department officers responded to an emergency call from the Hyatt Regency. Upon arrival, they discovered 16-year-old Kalecia in the lobby, suffering from a gunshot wound to the groin. The scene was chaotic, hotel guests watching in horror, first responders working frantically to stabilize the teenager, and confusion about exactly what had transpired. Emergency medical personnel immediately began life-saving measures and rushed Kalecia to a nearby hospital. Despite their efforts, the wound proved fatal. At 12:23 a.m., before police even arrived at the scene, medical professionals pronounced Kalecia Williams dead, making her the 153rd homicide victim in Atlanta that year. The location of Kalecia's discovery, in the public lobby rather than the hotel room where the shooting allegedly occurred, would become an important element in understanding the full sequence of events and the actions of others present that night. A hotel guest named Kalecia Starkey provided one of the most important witness accounts of the night's events. Starkey, who was staying at the Hyatt Regency that evening, reported seeing two young men carrying Kalecia out of an elevator into the lobby area of the hotel. According to Starkey's statement, she encountered the distressing scene and immediately approached to help. In what must have been Kalecia's final conscious moments, Starkey held the dying teenager's hand while they waited for emergency services to arrive. This human connection in Kalecia's final minutes stands in stark contrast to the circumstances that led to her being shot. Starkey's testimony raised critical questions. Who were these two males transporting Kalecia? Why did they bring her to the lobby instead of calling for help from the room? Were they attempting to get her medical attention, or were they trying to distance themselves from the scene of the shooting? Her account became a crucial piece of the investigative puzzle. Atlanta Police Department officers arrived at the Hyatt Regency at 12:27 a.m., responding to reports of a shooting. They secured the scene, began collecting witness statements, and initiated what would become a homicide investigation. The third such investigation launched in Atlanta in less than 24 hours during that post-Christmas weekend. The initial police assessment determined that the shooting had occurred inside a hotel room, not in the lobby where Kalecia was found. Officers immediately began reviewing hotel security footage, interviewing witnesses, and processing the room for evidence. Their preliminary investigation revealed that Kalecia and a teenage boy were the only individuals inside the room when the shooting occurred. Moving with remarkable efficiency, investigators identified and located a teenage male suspect within hours of the incident. Though his name was withheld due to his minor status, police confirmed he was an acquaintance of Kalecia's. The rapid identification and apprehension suggested there was substantial evidence pointing to his involvement. In a heartbreaking detail that compounded the family's trauma, Kalecia's parents weren't notified of their daughter's death until 8:45 a.m. on December 27th, nearly 8 hours after she was pronounced dead. While they slept, unaware of the tragedy, their daughter's case was already being processed as a homicide. You see it, and you never think it would hit home. Not Pinky, not Pinky, Romney Savoy later expressed, reflecting the shock that came with the delayed notification. The family was devastated not only by the news itself, but by the significant gap between Kalecia's death and their notification, which they felt robbed them of crucial hours to process and respond. I need to pause here and ask, how often do you verify your teenager's whereabouts? If your child told you they were at a friend's house, would you have ways to confirm this? Take a moment to comment below with your thoughts on how parents can balance trust with verification in the digital age. This isn't about paranoia, it's about protection. If this story has made you think differently about teen supervision, hit that like button and share this video with other parents. These conversations might feel uncomfortable, but as Kalecia's story shows us, they're absolutely necessary. Your engagement helps spread awareness that could save lives. Within hours of Kalecia's death, Atlanta police identified and apprehended a teenage boy in connection with the shooting. The speed of the arrest suggested that evidence at the scene clearly pointed to this individual. While authorities withheld his name due to his juvenile status, they confirmed he was an acquaintance of Kalecia's who had been present in the hotel room. The arrest occurred on December 27, 2020, as investigators pieced together the events of the previous night. Police statements indicated that hotel security footage, witness testimonies, and physical evidence all played roles in identifying the suspect. The teenager was taken into custody without incident and transported to a juvenile detention facility. This swift action by law enforcement provided some initial reassurance to a community shaken by the third homicide in Atlanta in less than 24 hours during that holiday weekend. However, the arrest would prove to be just the beginning of a complex case that left many questions unanswered. Following his arrest, prosecutors filed multiple serious charges against the teenage suspect. Despite his minor status, the severity of the alleged crime resulted in a substantial list of charges: felony murder, aggravated assault, reckless conduct, and possession of a pistol by a person under 18 years of age. Additionally, authorities included a sexual assault charge, though the specific details supporting this charge were not made public. The inclusion of felony murder, a charge that applies when a death occurs during the commission of another felony, suggested investigators believed the shooting occurred in conjunction with another serious crime. This charge carries significant penalties even for juvenile offenders, potentially allowing for more severe sentencing than typical juvenile cases. The weapons possession charge highlighted another troubling aspect of the case: how a teenager obtained a firearm and brought it to a hotel gathering. This element of the case pointed to broader issues of gun access among minors that extended beyond the immediate circumstances of Kalecia's death. While the Williams family expressed relief that an arrest had been made quickly, they voiced immediate concerns about the scope of the investigation. From their perspective, the teenage suspect wasn't the only person who should be held accountable for the circumstances leading to their daughter's death. Her family said they believe the shooter is not the only one responsible for her life being cut short, and investigators should consider additional charges, reported local media, capturing the family's sentiment that responsibility extended beyond the trigger puller. They questioned why adults who facilitated the hotel booking weren't facing consequences, and why those who misrepresented the nature of the gathering to obtain parental permission weren't being held accountable. Romney Savoy and April Smith were particularly troubled by the deception regarding Kalecia's whereabouts. "She wasn't out here in these streets," her stepfather emphasized, suggesting that their daughter had been misled just as they had been, and that others had created the dangerous situation that led to her death. Despite the arrest, numerous aspects of the case remained unclear, fueling the family's frustration and public interest. Primary among these questions was the exact nature of the relationship between Kalecia and the suspect. Police described them as acquaintances, but the full context of their connection and what led to their being alone in a hotel room remained vague. The presence of the gun raised additional questions. Who brought the weapon to the hotel? Was it brought specifically for protection or with harmful intent? How did a minor obtain a firearm in the first place? These questions pointed to potential failures in gun safety and control. Perhaps most troubling were the inconsistencies in the timeline. What exactly happened in those 21 minutes between Kalecia's final TikTok video and her death? Why was there a delay in notifying authorities? Who were the two males seen carrying her to the lobby? And what were their actions before emergency services arrived? These gaps in the narrative continued to haunt both investigators and Kalecia's grieving family. In the weeks following Kalecia's death, her family transformed their grief into a determined quest for complete transparency and accountability. April Smith and Romney Savoy refused to accept the limited information provided by authorities, believing that crucial details were being overlooked or deliberately obscured. They began speaking publicly about inconsistencies they perceived in the official narrative. The family raised pointed questions about hotel security protocols that allowed minors to book rooms without adult verification. They demanded access to all surveillance footage from the Hyatt Regency, suspecting it might reveal additional persons of interest or contradictions in witness statements. Most persistently, they questioned why adults who facilitated the deception about Kalecia's whereabouts weren't facing charges for their role in creating the dangerous situation. As a parent, you're supposed to pick up the phone and call that parent, Savoy stated, highlighting the breakdown in adult supervision and communication that contributed to the tragedy. Their advocacy kept public attention focused on the case, when it might otherwise have faded from headlines. Exactly 1 month after Kalecia's death, on January 26, 2021, family, friends, and community supporters gathered outside the Hyatt Regency for a powerful memorial demonstration. Dozens of attendees wore pink, Kalecia's favorite color, and released balloons in her memory while demanding justice and transparency. The location was deliberately chosen to pressure both the hotel and law enforcement to address unanswered questions. Speakers called for changes to hotel policies regarding minors and emphasized the need for greater accountability from all adults involved in the circumstances leading to the tragedy. The gathering served dual purposes, honoring Kalecia's memory while publicly reinforcing that her family would not rest until they received complete answers. The legal proceedings against the teenage suspect moved through the juvenile justice system, largely shielded from public view due to the defendant's age. While adult murder trials typically receive significant media coverage, the confidentiality protections afforded to minors meant that details of hearings, evidence presented, and legal arguments remained largely private. What eventually emerged was a result that shocked and disappointed Kalecia's family and supporters. Despite the serious nature of the charges, including felony murder, the teenage suspect received what many considered an extraordinarily lenient sentence. He was ordered to serve just 1 year in juvenile detention, a punishment that seemed dramatically disproportionate to the taking of a human life. The brevity of the sentence raised questions about whether the prosecution had encountered evidentiary challenges, whether a plea agreement had been reached, or whether the juvenile justice system had prioritized rehabilitation over punishment. Whatever the reasoning, the outcome left many feeling that justice had not been properly served. The 1-year sentence devastated Kalecia's family, who viewed it as a profound miscarriage of justice. April Smith expressed that the punishment nowhere near matched the permanent loss they had suffered. While they faced a lifetime without their daughter, her killer would resume normal life after just 12 months. "This isn't justice, this is an insult," Romney Savoy stated following the sentencing. The family vowed to channel their disappointment into advocacy for reforms in both the juvenile justice system and hotel safety policies. They established a foundation in Kalecia's name focused on teen safety, parental awareness, and pushing for stronger accountability when minors are harmed through adult negligence. Kalecia's tragic death illuminates several critical issues facing today's teenagers. The case highlights how digital platforms can create situations where online connections lead to real-world meetings without proper safeguards. It exposes gaps in hotel security protocols that fail to prevent minors from booking rooms unsupervised. Most alarmingly, it demonstrates how easily teenagers can access firearms despite legal prohibitions. The intersection of these factors, social media influence, inadequate supervision, deception about whereabouts, and access to weapons, created a perfect storm of danger. Kalecia's story serves as a sobering reminder that teen safety in the digital age requires vigilance across multiple fronts, from parental oversight to corporate responsibility to gun safety measures. For many parents, Kalecia's story fundamentally altered how they approach monitoring their children's activities. The case demonstrated that traditional parenting approaches might be insufficient in an era where teenagers can easily fabricate their locations and circumstances through digital means. Many families reported implementing more verification measures after learning about this tragedy. Hotel chains across the country reviewed their policies regarding unaccompanied minors, with some implementing stricter identification requirements and age verification procedures. Schools incorporated Kalecia's story into discussions about honesty with parents and the potential consequences of deception. Her case became a powerful teaching tool that transformed abstract warnings about safety into a concrete, relatable example of what can go wrong. Safety experts recommend several practical steps families can implement to prevent similar tragedies. Parents should verify gathering locations directly with other parents, not just accept a teenager's word. Location sharing apps can provide real-time verification of whereabouts. Clear communication about expectations and consequences for dishonesty creates a foundation of trust. For teenagers, understanding the potential dangers of misrepresenting their locations to parents is crucial. Peer pressure can be countered with pre-planned exit strategies from uncomfortable situations. Both parents and teens benefit from open discussions about gun safety and the legal consequences of weapons possession. These conversations, though difficult, create protective boundaries that might have saved Kalecia's life. Kalecia Pinky Williams should be remembered not just for how she died, but for who she was, a vibrant 16-year-old with a passion for dance, a love of the color pink, and a future full of possibilities. Her life, though tragically cut short, continues to have meaning through the awareness her story has created and the safety conversations it has sparked. As her family continues to advocate for justice and accountability, they also work to preserve the memory of their daughter's spirit and personality. In their words, she was not out in these streets, but a homebody who found joy in simple pleasures. A normal teenager whose story now serves as both a warning and a call to action. If this story moved you or made you think differently about teen safety, please like this video and share it with parents who need to hear this message. Your comments help build our community of awareness. Subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories for more cases that educate and potentially save lives through their lessons.